Democrats.
I welcome this debate, and I'm not sure that we shouldn't have a format that is the normal oral question format, because it is problematic not having the responses to other questions. I think at the very first instance, the health has to be the reference point, and the return to a safe working environment is, I think, what we all aspire to, where we won't see an escalation. So let me just state that in the first instance. For a number of weeks, the Social Democrats have been looking for an expert task force, and that needs to be sector by sector, and it needs to be, sequenced in terms of what are the industries that are returned. We may see some of that announced with the roadmap tomorrow or the day after. I think it's important to say that, we've all had contact from people in business, and they're saying very often, I can't take on another loan. I don't have any income. And it doesn't matter if the interest rate is 0% or 5% or 10%, if they haven't got an income to pay back. Obviously the interest rate really matters, but there is a real issue here. And if we start looking at the cost of creating jobs, we know the cost that from the IDA, from Enterprise Ireland, we know the tax forgone, we know, social welfare rates. There is a cost-benefit analysis in retaining jobs, and that's critically important. I am looking at some of the points that have been made in relation to timelines for reopening, and Chambers Ireland were talking about most businesses needing 2 weeks. So, Minister, that lead-in has to be taken into consideration in terms of giving people notice so that they can use the time well. And indeed, there is going to have to be an outlay for most businesses in terms of the COVID, the physical distancing measures and other measures depending on the industry. And for example, there should be some grant funding for that. I can foresee a situation where we're going to have a row in months to come about VAT even in terms of this. So I think that is something that's distinctive. The other point I want to make in relation to, I'm going to skip over a number of things and hopefully leave you a little bit of time to reply. The Health and Safety Authority, and I've certainly had people who have been on to me about something that's open that shouldn't be opened, and when you start looking at where the enforcement mechanism is, there isn't one. Essentially, ring the guards, what you're told, and that isn't satisfactory. Minister, will you specifically address what will change in terms of the Health and Safety Authority in terms of enforcement for non-compliant businesses, and there will be non-compliant businesses? What scaling up is there going to be, and does there require to be additional legislation in terms of enforcement? For example, there's going to be, we all know the construction sector, for example, is very varied. And it's varied in terms of compliance. For example, there's a large number of building workers that are located in Northern Ireland and routinely come up and down. That is going to be something that specifically has to be considered. Indeed, not exclusively from Northern Ireland. Some come from other parts of the UK and other parts of Europe. That has to be considered in the context of the return of the construction sector, because ports, airports, and indeed the movement of employees. I'm going to skip through quickly. I asked a question to you, and you responded to me in relation to the hairdressing sector. That includes a whole lot of other sectors: beauticians, nail bars, probably play centres, a whole lot of other areas. And you directed me towards the National Standards Authority of Ireland document. Very good document, but too general. And it is not specific to some areas, and there's going to have to be work with particular sectors because they're not all the same. Minister, can you address that? Retail Excellent Ireland, you gave, and I actually got a response from you in that. And in relation to, if you could address the issue in relation to the rent freeze on the commercial side, I mean, there is a real problem here, and about people being asked for it quarterly in advance. And under threat at the moment, I'm hearing from some people where they have not a direct relationship with the landlord, but they're renting from a building that is, pension fund or from a vulture fund or whatever, but a more anonymous landlord than a direct individual, if you like. So I'll leave the time for you to come back on those questions.
Okay, thank you, Deputy Murphy. I'll just start with the last question first. Regarding commercial rents and landlords, I outlined where there a lot of them are, giving that latitude, and they're working with their tenants, and rightly so. But there are always going to be a cohort who don't do that. Now, I did speak to the Minister for Justice about this as well, and the difficulty here, and that's why I've asked the AG to look at it and look at how models in other countries and how it has worked, is that there could be constitutional issues around that, because commercial tenants and landlords, they're subject to a fairly, it's commercial law and it's contract law you're going into there. So there could be issues around that, because a lot of them are quite complex, and that's why it's just taken a bit longer. But believe you me, there is a willingness to try and address the issue, but we have to do it in a way that obviously that it's going to work. So that's just to give you the update on that. Regarding on the exit plan or the exit strategy, we hope to be in a position, or expect to be in a position, to share that with the Irish public in the next couple of days. And the plan will set out different steps and a step, that we need to take as to how we can reopen the country and reopen our society based on different levels, on different intervals. We need to get the advice from the CMO on Friday as to when we should start the process of reopening the country and reopening the economy. And in doing so, we really have to look at things like the number of patients who are in the ICUs and COVID, of course. Those numbers just aren't good enough yet, as we know.
I accept that.
Yeah.
I just would like you to address some of the questions.
Yeah.
Like, for example,
okay. Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm going to do that.
The hairdressing and other areas like that, the very general.
Well, just to say that the HSA is available today for anybody that has concerns about the workplace. Contact the HSA, and they are available. The NSA guideline is available that you show, and the HSA and the HSE are working together, and.
Essentially, I'm asking you a very specific question. Is it going to be scaled up? Because there'll be non-compliant industries here, and we need to know, is there going to be a means of enforcement?
Yeah, okay. Well, can I just say to you that that we are working, the HSA are working with the HSE. It's detailed, it's complex work. I hope to have that work completed and published shortly, and it will set out clearly what is expected of both employers and employees. And as I said, we have other protocols in place at the minute, and these guidelines set out a range of measures, and I hope to have the next set of guidelines, which, as I said, I hope to have them very shortly, and they'll be published. We're working with the unions, we're working with the employers to make sure that we get it right, because I absolutely understand, as I know you do, that people have to be sure that they're safe in their workplace, and the employers also want to make sure that they are putting in the right protections, because nobody wants to cause difficulty for workers. So it's that they give them both that confidence, the right processes are in place, and employees have the confidence that they can go into work and feel safe. So that will happen.
Movement of construction workers across boundaries.
Well, again, as I said, the HSA and the HSE are working together. They're working with the different employers and with the unions to make sure that to have a suite and a document that everybody can work with, and that should be ready shortly.
Thank